This is Miller Philosopher. I've done many videos on people from the House of Finwe, from the most notable to some of the least mentioned. But one person who is spoken of as more of an afterthought, I think, is Finwe's second wife, Endis. In canon, or at least the latest version of the SIlmarilion, Endis is spoken very little of except that she for a time seems to heal Finwe's sorrow and fathers their kids, Fingolfin and Finarfin. And then that's it. Now, I confess that even I neglected the character until recently when I came across some further info on her indirectly when I was doing the video on Miriel herself about her resurrection and choice not to return to the Noldor. It raised a unspoken question about what would have happened had she decided to return to the Noldor after she was resurrected and met Finwe's second wife, the woman who replaced her, or at least arguably tried to. Now, I did some digging on the messiness of Tolkien's unpublished works that didn't make it into the main Silmarillion edit by his son Christopher Tolkien, and found further information on Endis that go much further into her personality, I think, as well as implications of what may or may not be going on. Endis came across Finwe by chance, and having seen her, Finwe immediately became enchanted by her beauty as a Vanyar elf woman, since the Vanyar were considered the most attractive of all elves, and in that moment felt that perhaps there could be healing that he so desperately sought since Miriel had died. After some legal deliberation among the Valar about the law that Finwe was still regarded as being married to Miriel, whose spirit now dwelt in the halls of Mandos and her body was basically lifeless, but preserved, a statute was found that Finwe could marry Endis only if Miriel chose to forego being resurrected or re-embodied based on your preference, and thus, by her decision to not follow that path, annul the marriage. Finwe sensed Miriel's spirit would reject this, probably knowing of her stubbornness, and indeed this is what came to pass. Miriel, as I stated in the earlier video, passed up the opportunity and thus allowed the second marriage of Finwe to take place. After this, we are all familiar with what happens next, the infighting that happens within the family, and many elves started to feel that perhaps this second marriage to Endis had been a bad idea. This too seemed to come to pass when Feanor makes the famous death threat at his half-brother Fingolfin and is thus exiled. It says in the SIlmarilion that Finwe chose to follow after him because he had a greater part of his love than any other member of his family, including Endis. It was starting to seem like she had just been a rebound after all, basically. This was pretty much confirmed when, after he is killed by Melkor, Finwe is at last reunited with Miriel in the halls of Mandos, and having learned of the grief that her stubbornness had sown for her family of the Noldor, Miriel now expresses a desire to return to her body to make a great tapestry of the Noldor, detailing their history, their struggles, and their family. Finwe bargains with Vaere and Mandos that he would forego return to his people, choosing to remain with his son, and thus allowing Miriel to return. Vaere, whom I now have a much more decent respect for along with Umo, calls out bullshit on Finwe because he was now choosing to renege on his second marriage, something that put the Valar through a lot of trouble because of the legal haggling that they had to do to get that resolved. And now here he was going back and choosing his first family over the second one. Make up your mind. And get this, and this was the funny thing about this that I literally laughed out loud when I read it, that basically when Finwe is called out for his bullshit, he gives the most arguably bullshit excuse that an elf ever gave in all of the Legendarium, that love for one woman doesn't diminish love for the other, and that it had already been some time since he had passed or even seen Endis because of his departure with Feanor from Tirion, and that while Endis may miss him as Fingolfin's father, she would not as Feanor's. Like, what the fuck, dude? Did you just really say that? I mean, this literally confirmed Endis' status as a rebound. And now we see that where else Feanor pulls his faults from as well. Either way, we are not given Indis's perspective on this, save that she went back to the Vanir with great sadness to await the resurrection of Finwe. Yeah, no future problems there. Finway's statement and actions give insight into Indis's relationship with him. It confirms that he indeed had never really recovered from Miriel's death, despite what he may have thought when he first saw her. If favor for their son wasn't proof enough, then abandoning her and their family to go into exile with the ungrateful elf lord did, or at least should have. And for once, other than Umo, I'm going to thank Avala for calling out this crap. Moreover, this statement about Indis not missing the father of Feanor implies some kind of rift may have opened up between them, which makes sense since it would be impossible for her not to notice the deference he was giving her stepson. And as I've said in many other videos, the ghost of Miriel haunted the house of Finwe ever since her death and never left. Yet Indis still apparently felt some loyalty and maybe some love to Finwe despite it all. I wonder what would have happened if she had been told what went down in the halls of Mandos after his death and reunion with his first family. I mean, it's literally the ex walking back into his life and disrupting the current relationship. How would Indis have reacted knowing that, like Miriel, Finwe had the opportunity to return but chose his first family instead, leaving her unaware and waiting on him for who knows how long? And if the end of Arda ever did come, because I know that was never completed, how would it have gone down when Finwe, his son, and grandsons were re-embodied after all this? Miriel would probably either want to see them or vice versa. More Noldor family drama would yet continue, even into the remade world that comes after. It just never ends. So ultimately, I did really come to pity Indis, because while her sons and grandsons basically saved Middle-earth and did great deeds, she didn't deserve Finwe, honestly. And in the nuance of things, I think those elves were probably right that questioned the marriage. I mean, seriously, Finwe really came across as a Chad in this version of the story. And honestly, I think I may choose to cherry pick the unpublished lore, as it were, and leave this whole particular part out, because this was just bad. Even for elves and Noldor elves on top of that, this was just fucking bad. Indis was loyal to a fault, and ultimately not just got caught up in the drama of the House of Finwe, but got even more entangled in it than I first thought when I did my videos on Finwe and Feanor a couple of years ago. But other than that, let me know what your thoughts are, if you think she is the jilted or wronged wife, or perhaps Miriel's the one who's been jilted and wronged. Otherwise, let me know your thoughts below. This is the Miller Philosopher. Happy New Year and have a good day.